How is it going, everyone? We are back with another mock draft. Let's talk about drafting from the number one overall position in a 12-man league. Who am I going to take? With the number one overall pick, I think you really have to go running back between Bijan and Gibbs. You can make a case for Ja'Marr Chase at 1, but I just think of how valuable running back is for your team. I think you got to go running back at number 1 overall, and I'm going to take Bijan Robinson. I think Bijan Robinson is the clear-cut number 1 overall pick. Let's get into the draft. All right, Mr. Bijan Robinson, first pick of the draft. If you get number 1, you won the lottery. I love Bijan Robinson in this draft. Let's go ahead and add him to this disgusting team I'm about to build. All right, we are at pick 24 and 25 next. We have the turn. Honestly, the 1 pick in previous years hasn't been great. Just hasn't worked out with the number 1 overall pick. I love the spot that you get put in at 24 and 25 if you're 1 in a 12-man. You get your elite running back off the board. You know, you get him for your team, and I don't think you have to go running back again until your 4th or 5th pick. And the receivers that are at these picks, yes, you might have to reach a little bit, just a couple picks, but if I can get a Nico Collins, Olave, Pickens, 2 of those guys, even if a Trey McBride falls to 24, if I can get Bijan and Trey McBride as my first 2 picks and as a number 1 overall pick in a 12-man, I am absolutely ecstatic. If Trey McBride is here at pick 24, I'm 100% taking him. Brissett is back in camp. Trey McBride and Brissett going to leave off where they left last year. McBride with Brissett, rather, averaged 21 fantasy points in games where Brissett started. That is video game type numbers. I'm going Trey McBride here as the first pick of my turn picks. And now comment below what receiver you would go here. Would you go Collins? Would you go Garrett Wilson, A.J. Brown, Olave, Pickens? Honestly, a great selection of receivers here. You can look at the ADPs on the right there. A.J. Brown going pretty high. Nico Collins at 27. I honestly like Garrett Wilson the best out of these 3 receivers, but I'm going to go Nico Collins for the sake of the realistic draft. I'm going with Nico Collins at 25. I think he's going to have a great season. CJ Stroud, really expecting him to bounce back, and go for that big contract. If he doesn't have a good year, I still think Collins will have a semi-relevant fantasy season, but we're really relying on CJ Stroud to have a good, solid year. That O-line is a little bit worrying, but they added Montgomery. They have a more balanced run game. I think the pass game is going to be a little bit better than it was in previous years, so I'm going with Nico Collins at 25. But like I said, Bijan, Collins, and Trey McBride as your first 3 picks. You get, in my opinion, the best running back, the best tight end, and a top 10 fantasy wide receiver as your first 3 picks. You are absolutely off to a great start. All right, so we have pick 48 and 49 as our next 2 picks. I think we wait for quarterback. Like, I've said in previous videos, if I go early on tight end, if I go get a McBride, if I go get a Bowers, I'm not taking quarterback early. I don't think it's worth it to take both those positions early. But honestly, in my draft history, what I normally do in my drafts, I don't take quarterback early at all. I just do not think it's worth it. I don't think it normally pays off. But at pick 48, we are really looking to get another receiver and another running back. So right off the bat, I'm liking a Terry. I'm liking a T. Higgins. If Judkins were to be able to be there in, future drafts, he won't be in this one. I think Judkins is the perfect pick to balance Bijan as your 2 running backs. As I assumed, Judkins went. I'm eyeing T. Higgins here. I think T. Higgins is just honestly a really good pick. Why do I say shit? Damn it. All right. Now we're looking at Waddle, Jameson Williams. We have Tate there. I think it's a little too early. I think I like Jalen Waddle here. I think that's a nice balance. I think he's going to have a great year in Denver. I think he's got wide receiver top 10 upside. Let's go Jalen Waddle with the first pick there. Now we're looking at it here. Now you kind of have to reach on a running back in this situation because your next pick, majority of these running backs aren't going to be there. So comment below what running back you like the most out of these. Going with Jadarian Price. I like Jadarian Price the most out of those. Let's talk about why. Jadarian Price is going into a Seattle Seahawks offense where they drafted him in the first round. No Charbonnet for the first few weeks. He's coming off a torn ACL. While, yes, Kenneth Walker did not have fantasy relevant numbers, I think Jadarian Price brings a little bit more to the table in terms of explosiveness, and they can rely on Jadarian Price a little bit more because in the past, Kenneth Walker had injuries. He wasn't as reliable, so I think that's why they went to that 1-2 punch of running backs. Clint Kubiak loves a running back 1 and 2, is gone. I think Jadarian Price will be that 70% RB1 even when Charbonnet does come back. So I really like Jadarian Price's value. And worst case, does great for the first few weeks, and towards when Charbonnet comes back, you wait until Charbonnet kind of, fizzles into the team. When Price is still super relevant, you can trade him if you're worried about him, falling off or whatever it might be. At pick 72, who we eyeing? I really want DJ Moore. All right, so DJ Moore, 1 pick away. We really want DJ Moore at picks. Oh my gosh! What the? All right. Let's lock in. All right, who are we taking here? Who would you guys take here? I would realistically take Sutton because I have Waddle. I'm not going to do that. Now, I don't really like what I'm given here at this pick, but I do like Brian Thomas in fantasy this year. I'll take Brian Thomas with one of the picks. And at the other pick, I think we go for a little bit more of a floor. We could go quarterback. We really could. Michael Wilson's an interesting one. Don't feel scared to reach, you guys. At picks like this, don't look at the ADP as much as you normally would. Don't feel super pressured to not reach. I'm going Wan'Dale Robinson here. I think he's going to be an extremely consistent option. I think he's going to be the number 1 receiver on the Titans. I think with Tate being a rookie, we'll get some big plays. We'll have a great season, but I don't think he's going to be the wide receiver 1. Wan'Dale Robinson is a guy for fantasy. I think he's going to be the wide receiver 1 on the Titans. When you have a safety valve in Wan'Dale Robinson, like a Shakir, like a guy that can catch those short intermediate passes, I think he's going to find that sophomore quarterback and his connection a lot easier than somebody who's going to be a go route guy, down the field guy like Carnell Tate. I think Wan'Dale Robinson is honestly one of the biggest sleepers in this draft. I think at pick 100 is his ADP. I think that's an absolute steal. I'd honestly take him at pick 70 over some of the receivers you see right there, like Pierce, Tyson, Parker Washington. I'm taking Wan'Dale over every single one of those receivers, 100%, just because of, like I said, that floor is completely there. And Wan'Dale Robinson was a top 15 receiver last year. With semi-spotty QB play, I think Wan'Dale Robinson is definite good option in fantasy this year. All right, now at pick 96 and 97, we 100% want to take quarterback. I don't hate Herbert here, but I'm iffy on the Chargers, man. And Justin Herbert, a lot of excuses made for that fella. I'm going Matthew Stafford as our quarterback. We got Stafford. I can't type up the team yet. We got another pick. We have another pick, and I think we go running back here. Not really loving the running back selection, but, honestly, I'm going to hold off on going running back. I know 2 running backs, very thin, but I'm going to go with another upside receiver. I'm going with Matthew Golden. I think Matthew Golden is a guy that honestly could finish inside the top 15. When we talk about a guy that started to find his, shell, started to find what he was made of in the NFL at the end of the season, he had his career game in the playoffs against the Bears. No Romeo Doubs anymore. I personally think Jayden Reed is on the lower peg of these 3 receivers on the Packers. Christian Watson cannot play more than half of a season healthy. Literally cannot stay on the field. I cannot believe that contract. Great receiver, but can't stay on the field like I just said. I think Matthew Golden is the benefactor of that. I think Jayden Reed is the wide receiver wide receiver 3 like I just said. Matthew Golden has a perfect opportunity to be the consistent wide receiver 1 for an entire NFL season. Yes, he is undersized. But when you talk about skill set, when you talk about easy to get involved in a game, I think Matthew Golden has it. I think they're going to look to get him the ball in every single game like they have with Jayden Reed in past years. And if Christian Watson, once again, doesn't play a full season, that wide receiver 1 role is wide open for Golden to take over and be a wide receiver 1 in fantasy. I think he has top 15 wide receiver upside for fantasy football. I Matthew Golden as a later flyer for receiver in your fantasy drafts. All right, so with our picks being next, I want Jordan Mason 100% as one of the running backs. And honestly, I don't hate taking quarterback at this pick for a little bit of safety. with a guy like Matthew Stafford as my quarterback, but I'm not going to do it. I don't want to reach too much on a backup quarterback. I don't think it's worth it. I think taking 2 running backs here, like a Jordan Mason and a Corum, 2 guys that have an actual shot at splitting carries this year and providing certain fantasy relevance on bye weeks and potential RB1, relevance if their guys, go down, which you don't want to root for. But for a guy like Jordan Mason, when Aaron Jones has had a ton of injuries in his career, I think Jordan Mason has a great chance to be the running back 1. I'm going to go Jordan Mason with the first pick here. And like I said, Blake Corum will be my next pick. I think he's a guy that should see expanded volume like he did last year. I think Kyren and him will actually split more goal line carries, even though Kyren is a great goal line back. I think Corum's going to be a decent fantasy option. I think Kyren's obviously still the running back 1, but I think Corum on a flex, on a bye, is a 8 to 12 point flyer, which is totally okay at running back. So we'll go Corum. I'll see you guys at my next pick. All right, and with pick 144 and 145 coming up, we could go with both my handcuffs and take Charbonnet and Brian Robinson for Bijan, which I'm going to do. I'm going to take Charbonnet and I'm going to go take Brian Robinson. Yes, you might see it as 2 wastes of picks, but look at it this way. When you draft your handcuffs, I just took both my handcuffs, Brian Robinson and Zach Charbonnet. Do you view it as a handcuff? When you view it as a handcuff, it's the wrong way to look at it. View it as, okay, say I took a Braylon Allen or a Tank Bigsby. The only way they are fantasy relevant is if those RB1s go down. So instead of sitting there and semi-rooting for, that guy to win over the starting spot, take the guy that's going to help your team if the RB1 goes down, which is going to be Brian Robinson. And it's going to be, when you take your handcuffs, is it worth taking your handcuffs? Absolutely. Because look at the board right now. Denzel Boston, is he going to provide enough for my fantasy team week in and week out? Or am I that I'm willing to risk, my starting running back going down and having no insurance? Absolutely fucking not. I want my backup running backs, because if by any means, forbid, a running back goes down and you don't have your handcuff, you're totally screwed. Play safe. Take your handcuffs. It's better than having guys that are realistically going to provide no relevance to you. When at these picks, 168 and 169, you can take some flyers. You can go take a guy that you think is going to be, a long shot, a dark horse guy to provide relevance for your team. All right, we're at pick 168 next. We could take a backup quarterback to back up Stafford. I don't think we need to do that. If Stafford were to go down, we can just snag a guy off of waivers. I'm going to go with a flyer here. I'm looking at a couple guys. I think there is some serious, value in Tyjae Spears. I think he's going to have some running back, receiving upside. But since I took Wan'Dale Robinson, we're going to go for a backup tight end. And I know what you're thinking. You drafted McBride and you're taking a backup tight end. Just wait until there's multiple people in your league desperate for tight end, and they are willing to offer you a very solid flex option for that tight end that's providing relevance to your bench, not to your team because you have McBride. But yes, that is a long play. I didn't like any of the guys, at that pick for flyer wise as we take Chiefs defense here. So I'm going to go with a guy that I think could have serious trade value in, the middle of the season or a couple weeks into the season when people realize that they screwed up and didn't take a tight end. But we're going to go for Reichert here. Had a great rookie season. So let's talk about the team. I'll line it up on the left for you so you can see it in fantasy format. We have Matthew Stafford at quarterback. Bijan Robinson is our RB1. Jadarian Price is our RB2. We have Collins, Waddle, and Brian Thomas / Wan'Dale Robinson as a wide receiver 1, 2, and flex. We have Trey McBride at tight end. Then we got, our bench defense. We got Chiefs defense with Reichert. And then we have on the bench our 2 handcuffs, of course, with Charbonnet and Brian Robinson. Then we have Golden, Mason, Corum, Juwan Johnson. I love this team. I'm going to give this team a 9.4 out of 10. At the 1 spot, I think this is such an ideal team to draft. I think there's a perfect amount of floor with Wan'Dale Robinson, Bijan, McBride, Price, a mix with upside, Waddle, Brian Thomas, Jordan Mason, Matthew Golden. I think there's a lot of upside and, floor with this team. 9.4 out of 10. Honestly, this is probably the best mock draft I've done so far. Absolutely love this team. Comment below what you guys would rank it. But to me, from the 1 pick, this is an absolutely ideal team. Comment below what pick you want to see next, How many people are in your league? I appreciate every single one of you staying for the end of the video. I'll catch you guys next time. Have a good one.